what is the significance of suspending these licences?
Yeah, it's interesting. David Lammy was quite clear that this isn't an arms embargo by the UK. It was simply that there was a risk that some of the weapons could be used in a breach of international law. The slight irony there is any weapon could be used in breach, so I don't quite think that's the foundation of a policy. But by way of context, it is only 30 out of 350 licences that this affects. The UK, I think, did £18 million worth of defence trade last year, the figures for this year, and it's less than 1%. And if you look at the statistics here, the US and Germany are by far and away the biggest exporters, with Italy, and the UK is considerably less than 1%. What does it entail? It's components for some of the military equipment. What was interesting, though, was that it did not include the F-35 spares, and the F-35, the fighter jet, is being used, obviously, as part of the bombing campaign. I think, from my perspective, three main points, though. Your previous guest alluded to this. The UK and Israel has an interesting defence relationship. It's not just about arms trade, it's also about intelligence. Got to be really careful not to compromise that with this. Second one is UK exports. Yes, they're minimal on the defence space, but by turning those down, it prejudices our chance for doing business with Israel in the future and have some influence with them as part of this, creating the context for negotiation. And thirdly, defence exports is a huge multi-billion-pound revenue generator, creates jobs in the UK. Now, some would criticise saying it's warmongering, but the harsh reality is every nation is entitled to protect itself, and the UK not only provides weapons, but also provides vital training to make sure that customers operate in accordance with international law and the law of armed conflict.
What's your take, Sean, stepping back in terms of the growing pressure, which we discussed with the last guest a bit, on Prime Minister Netanyahu to reach some kind of deal to get more hostages out?
I think because we've been commenting on this for 11 months, I think what's changed for me is that the war in Gaza is abating somewhat. Remember, Netanyahu claimed that his objectives were to destroy Hamas and to release the hostages. His priority has clearly been Hamas, but now that the conflict is abating, there's really interesting questions about what about this second priority. Now, Israel claims that 251 hostages were held. That was a mixture of Israelis and foreign nationals. 4 of those apparently have been held for several years. 2 of those are believed to have been dead. But statistically, what's the best way of releasing them? Is it a military action or negotiation? If you go back to the ceasefire in November, that released over 100 hostages. We're seeing some of the video footage from that now. By far and away the best way of releasing political negotiation. By contrast, military action since the start of the war has actually only liberated 8 hostages, one most recently a week ago today, and a bit of video footage of his release here. There are 97 hostages left. We believe that 35 of those are dead. So statistically, particularly when you look at this weekend, another 6 hostages tragically lost their life. Hamas reported to have killed them during an Israeli operation. All of that, when you sit back on it, the most likely way to get the hostages out is through political negotiation. Now that the war is abating in Gaza, that's why there's increased pressure, particularly domestically, for Prime Minister Netanyahu to deliver on his stated priority of getting the hostages out. Can he deliver now?